So this is Benjamin Buckley. Assuming Democrats win the House in 2020, will they have no choice but to stack the Supreme Court to ensure survival of the progressive legislation such as Medicare for All, the wealth tax, or an assault on a weapons ban? I love this. The Supreme Court. Now, I've argued that the Supreme Court needs to be taken as a political factor. What that means is pretending as if the Supreme Court is this impartial arbiter of events. It's nonsense. I don't even know why people pretend that. I mean, if that was true, you wouldn't have so much fighting and the arguments of, well, you have to win the presidency so you can choose the members of the Supreme Court. Because everybody knows that whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're going to choose somebody who is within your ideological backing. It has less to do with the law, it has more to do with putting people on the bench that would kill your opponent's ideas, but allow yours to sail through. That's what the Supreme Court is. The Supreme Court needs to be taken for that and attacked as such. I don't think you can get away with packing the court. I mean, FDR, the term packing the court comes from FDR. When FDR legislation when he was pushing through the New Deal, it kept getting shot down. So FDR went with this idea of packing the court. He was going to put more members on the court. His thought was, there's nothing to say, I can't add people to the court. Now, people freaked out over this, in which case we backed down. But Sanders said something that was interesting. It said something that was different than packing the court. He said, there's nothing to say that the judges can't be rotated. And everybody's mouth in the debate hall dropped. Like, what? And I looked at my wife and I was like, what the fuck? And I had never heard that. Have I heard that? Rotating the judges? I don't think I've heard that. But it tells you something. He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it, which he should be thinking about it. Because what he knows is whatever he passes is going to be attacked. And there's a conservative Supreme Court that is going to be looking at all of the legislation that goes through. If Elizabeth Warren passed her wealth tax, that wealth tax would get held up in court and would get dealt with by a conservative Supreme Court. Same thing with Sanders. If Sanders goes through and puts his legislation through, a conservative Supreme Court will look for any and everything that they can use to try to attack the law. Obamacare, for example. The reason why Obamacare went up to 50% just before the election was because Republicans were taking chunks out of the law. And they were taking chunks out of it in a way that caused the costs to go up higher than they would have otherwise spiked. They can then turn around and say, costs on Obamacare went up 50%. I thought you were supposed to be dealing with healthcare, man. And then Mitch McConnell can even turn around in a show of hypocrisy that is breathtaking, say, your healthcare plan doesn't even cover everybody. McConnell actually said that. Obamacare doesn't even cover everybody. He was saying that as an attack on Obamacare, as if he was going to put something through that did. It's a stunt. Like, the stuff that these guys say is amazing. The stuff they say is amazing. But they're not going to be able to pack the court. But the rotating of Supreme Court thing is interesting. If the Democrats get the House, the Senate, Supreme Court, which, by the way, a House and a Senate and the presidency, which is what they would need to affect their will in regards to Medicare for all. And by the way, that's not an impossible thing. Trump's polling is looking a little weird, especially in the dislikes. If Sanders wins, most likely Democrats take the House and the Senate. If Trump wins, most likely Republicans take the House and the Senate. It's for all the marbles. In real terms. When Republicans took the House the first time around, my thought was they look weak even though they have it all. That's not going to be true this time. If they take it this time, that's not looking weak. Trump is going to scream that he has a mandate and all of the gross policies that Republicans want, they're going to push through. And you can argue that this, ups the crisis of sorts. This, increases the contradictions within the capitalistic system that drives people to be pissed off at the system that, raises their pitchforks and everything else. By the same token, that's also pain. I would prefer not to deal with that pain and just for Trump to lose and for Sanders to win. Because my point is this. Medicare for all is not as impossible as people are acting like it is. And if you get a Sanders presidency, you most likely will get a Sanders Senate and a Sanders House. And what will probably happen is the end of the filibuster, so they can get a simple majority vote in order to get it over the finish line. Like, it's doable. It's doable. I guess that's my point. It's not an impossible thing, especially if you get a Sanders presidency, because there are certain things that would mean. There's certain things that would mean. And one of those things is House and Senate. And in that situation, the Supreme Court can be attacked as a political instrument. The catch here is you would need Democrats on the same page, and I don't know if you have Democrats on the same page. Sanders, they don't even consider him a Democrat in proper terms. And it's hard to know how media would treat Sanders. I suppose they wouldn't treat him all that much better than they treat him now, especially if he's doing things that is going to raise their taxes, which he is, and doing things that attack their billionaire payers, which he is. So I'm getting away from the point. The Supreme Court can be attacked as a political instrument. Rotating the judges is one idea. Packing is one idea, but I have a hard time believing that packing will be the issue, because packing has a certain connotation to it that doesn't fly over well. So Ben Buckley, yes, you're awesome, because at the very least you're looking at Supreme Court as a political instrument that needs to be neutralized. And yes, if Sanders gets in, there's a chance they could neutralize it, especially if they need to get Medicare for All passed. But I got to be honest, the issue is going to be as Democrats. The Medicare All thing, even though there's a majority in the House, when you get the opportunity to pull the trigger on it, that's a whole different story. Whether all of that majority of Democrats in the House will stay on that is unclear. Whether Nancy Pelosi will push that is unclear. The fact of the matter is Nancy Pelosi may need to lose her job in that situation, meaning a leadership challenge. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that may or that will need to happen for Medicare for All to get over the finish line, not to mention these other policies. But it is doable. It's doable. And by the way, not a 12-year horizon either. That's not being serious. There's one more. John